So I have the front engine cover off, and this is the alternator and the diode board, which make up the charging system. And then this are the electronic points. So I'm going to start by removing the diode board, and it's secured by 4 Allens, so I'll just back those out. Now there's 2 front wires. The one on the left goes to what's known as the Y terminal on the alternator, and the one on the right goes through the back of this cover and comes to a ring terminal, which is what went on the terminal with the nut on the starter solenoid. This is DC output from the diode board, so this wire carries the current that charges the battery. So this is the wire that carries the DC charging current. And this is the wire that goes to the Y terminal on the alternator. So I removed the 4 Allen bolts with wave washers. And this is the back of the diode board. This big plug carries the AC current coming from the alternator into the diode board. And this blue wire is what brings in the voltage regulator control current. So they just unplug off the back of the board like that. And that's the diode board. Now the blue wire goes up into this harness, and this wire runs back through the holes to the front of the alternator, and that's the AC output from the alternator, so I can just pull that right off. Now the other 2 wires in this harness go to the brushes on the alternator, so they're just on a spade terminal. I can just pull them out, and then they slide back through these holes, and this is essentially the voltage regulator harness that's removed now, and it has a grommet here that fits into the groove in this cover. Now this is the cover on the alternator, which is also called the stator cover, and there are 3 small Allen bolts that secure it. So I'm going to remove all of this so I can get the stator cover off. And I've got the 3 cover bolts removed, and each of them has a little wave washer on the end. So I should be able to eventually get this stator to come loose, but I may need to use a little persuasion on it. So I used a rubber mallet and tapped around the edge to get this to break free. I don't hit it real hard, I just kind of needed to do that to get it to loosen up. And then it slides right off. Now this is the alternator rotor, and these are the slip rings that the brushes go on. And you'll notice this brush is a little higher than this one, so it probably wasn't even really working. As I say, I'm going to replace everything anyway. So next up is to remove the rotor. Now to keep the rotor and crankshaft from turning while I remove the bolt, I like to use an oil filter wrench, and I just put that on, and then I can back the rotor bolt out. And usually I can get it out with my little electric impact driver. There it comes. Easy peasy. Now it'll come loose, but it won't come out because there's a second set of threads. So you need to then just hand remove it, because there's a set of threads in the crankshaft and a set of threads in the rotor. So that's why it doesn't want to come right out. There we go. So that's the rotor bolt and its lock washer. Now to remove the rotor, it takes a special hardened bolt to slide in, and then you screw it down tight so that it presses up against the nose of the crankshaft, and the screw threads in this bolt are captured in the screw threads in the rotor. and then you can tighten that up to pop the rotor off because it's a friction fit. So I'm going to use my oil filter wrench again to just immobilize the rotor, and a M12 socket that I can tighten up the bolt with. And I think it just popped. Let's see here. Yep, that was a big bang. And basically now the rotor just slides right off, and you can see this is a tapered machined shaft, and inside the rotor is a taper. So it's a mechanical fit that holds the rotor onto the crankshaft nose. So all done. Now the plug that goes to the electronic points has a little wire bail that secures the plug halves together. So I just take a little screwdriver and pop it free so that I can disconnect the plug. There we go. It sometimes is a little sticky, but that's it. And then you can just separate the plug like that. Now the electronic points unit, sometimes referred to as the bean can because that's what it looks like, is secured with 2 Allens. So I'm just going to back those out, and then it should come free. Now the Allen bolt has a wave washer under the head of the bolt and a flat washer. And at this point we should be able to just pull the bean can right straight off, and there it comes. Now the input to the bean can has a set of ears on it, and they mate with the ears on the camshaft. And it also has an O-ring which seals this from leaking oil into the points cover.